Wait, Mr. Lucero, tell me, how concerned are you about this bill being signed by the governor, if it is signed by him, for your establishment?
Well, most of the restaurants in the state of New Mexico have been opposed to the regulation. It won't affect us, as I understand the bill, because it is for beer and wine licenses only, which is called a restaurant license. We're a full dispenser license, which means we can serve alcoholic beverages of other than beer and wine, for example, tequila, vodka, etc. Right now, the alcohol gaming department and the regulations, rules and regulations, prevent us or require us to not allow firearms, anybody carrying a firearm, into the building unless it's a police officer. So this would be contradictory to the overall legislation that's already in effect, the rules and regulations. As a matter of fact, we have signs posted, no firearms allowed in the restaurant. So, you know, what do you do in a situation like that? And I don't know why they gave it to the beer and wine licenses, but as I understand the reasoning behind this was that people who, and I'm definitely not anti-firearms, don't get me wrong, I just, you know, we have too many things to police in a restaurant as it is. Drunk people, underage people trying to drink, etc., etc. There's too much incumbent upon the restaurant owner to be able to have another police job for us to do. But the reasoning behind the legislation, I think, is that those people who are registered to carry a firearm, a concealed weapon, were leaving it in their cars, and people were stealing the firearm from the cars. I would imagine there were a couple of incidences where the firearms were stolen. I don't know how many or what, but it certainly is the catalyst for the legislation. And to me, that's not reason enough to make a restaurant owner have to put up with concealed weapons.
And so, and you mentioned it there, and you know, this law doesn't apply to you as a full dispenser. But are you concerned with some confusion, some, you know, ambiguity if the governor signs the bill of concealed carry licensees feeling that they can carry their weapon into an establishment like yours?
I'm very concerned because people won't understand it and they'll think that they can come into a restaurant like this. And, you know, we're aware of it because we're the licensee. We have to renew every year. We have to abide by the rules and regulations. And the average Joe that, you know, comes in doesn't know these things. As a matter of fact, he doesn't know the difference between a beer and wine license and a full dispenser's license. So if he thinks that he can go into a restaurant with his hidden firearm or his concealed weapon, then it's incumbent upon us to have to say you can't bring that into the restaurant. It would be a matter of us having to ask every patron that comes in, basically, are you 21? And are you carrying a concealed firearm? I guess it could be kind of fun, especially during tourist season, to have to ask the tourists if they're carrying a firearm. I'm all for people being able to carry a concealed weapon, or for that matter, I think you can carry it on the hip if you wanted to. And I think there's legislation you might want to look into where it says that actually the proprietor and his designees at any kind of a liquor establishment or any establishment, retail establishment in the state of New Mexico, can carry a firearm as long as it's not concealed. So you could carry it on your hip. There was a liquor store in Albuquerque back about 30 years ago that used to have all of their clerks carry firearms on their hip, and they all had a big 6-gun there. It's kind of neat, you know, kind of interesting.
Well, not to go that direction, but it begs the question: are you going to have to talk with your staff and your folks if this is signed into law that says? I mean, you touched on it there. Are you going to start asking what precautions, I guess, will you be taking if this law becomes a reality?
Before I ask our staff to do that, I'm going to have to ask the Alcohol and Gaming Department to be a little bit more definitive as to how this affects us as well as the beer and wine licensees. The New Mexico Restaurant Association was very much against this legislation. and they took a stand against it, and our lobbyists worked to defeat the bill. Not from the standpoint that restaurateurs don't like to have firearms, or don't want people to have firearms, from the standpoint of the confusion that would cause people walking into a licensed establishment, whether it be beer and wine or liquor, full liquor, with a firearm. How can you determine which is right and which is wrong? So I think it's more incumbent upon the alcohol and gaming department to come up with reasonable methods of policing this, whether it affects us or not, because it will affect us, because people are going to do exactly what you said. What is this? Is this, it says restaurant, you're a restaurant, so I can bring it in. No, you can't. Yes, I can, and if you don't like it, I'll pull my gun on you. But that kind of confusion.
And so, and this will be the last question, but I mean, obviously you're in the restaurant community and you talk with other owners. Those who this would apply to now explicitly, how do they feel about it? What have they told you about this?
I really haven't had any discussions with any beer and wine licensees. I know that the New Mexico Restaurant Association, the board of directors of the New Mexico Restaurant Association, which is comprised of restaurateurs, were I would say almost 100% against the concealed weapons coming into licensed premises.
And so, and I apologize, I said that would be the last question. This is really it. Do you think restaurant owners know, those that will have beer and wine licenses, do you think if this gets signed into law, that they'll, word will spread right away, that they understand that they're supposed to have a sign posted, that I guess that the onus will be on them to let people know that guns are or aren't allowed on their property?
I would think that the guns would be allowed on their property, because that's what the law says, is that you can come in with a concealed weapon. Mm-hmm. Now, I really, to be honest with you, don't know if this applies also to an unconcealed weapon. In other words, somebody coming in with a 6-gun on their hip. Can they come into that same restaurant under this law? I don't know. But it's something that needs to be defined, and I think that it's incumbent upon the Alcohol and Gaming Division to let us know what the story is and how we need to comply and what the ramifications are if we do have a confrontation with somebody that is carrying.